Welcome YouTube, this is Emperor Dion. We're going to do this video in the dark. But today's topic, so this has been meaner to be said by me for a long time. Well, I have said this in numerous ways. You know, as a monastic, I don't agree with the system and reject the system for many various all-encompassing reasons. But one of these things, another one of these things that I can point at, is how the system affects young people, and specifically the disillusionment of young men. And this is very clear and obvious if you at all spend any time on the internet where potentially young men may congregate, or what young men are typically drawn to as far as like the content they watch. They watch a lot of doomer stuff. They watch a lot of things that appeal to the problems, the very real problems, mind you, that you will have as a young person. And I do feel like America as a nation is really dropping the ball in a major way here, because these young people have not only been forgotten and ignored by the leadership of the West and America specifically, but the consequence of this is that what's come in and filled that void is a lot of it is hostile actors, like hostile governments and stuff like this. So it's well known that nations like Russia and China have an enormous like cyber warfare specialists that their whole job is to patrol the interwebs and to engage with foreign nationals, specifically foreign nationals of countries that they may see as an adversary. So Americans in particular, American citizens in particular, are under a very targeted campaign by these forces. And these forces have correctly identified a vulnerability, that is young men. These same young men that have been neglected and ignored by the American system. It's like we dismiss these guys as, and you know, I'm part of this too. I'm not speaking like I'm a boomer here. I'm part of this too. But you know how the older people in America are towards young men. They are very dismissive of their problems, like, oh, you just gotta step in and get a firm handshake and you'll get a job. Oh, bro, it's not about your looks. You just gotta be confident, bro. Just take a shower, bro. Oh, your problems are just, you're exaggerating. It's not that bad, bro. You just gotta get out there. And it's like, you guys don't understand that too many guys are having real and serious issues, and this advice and these platitudes that you give no longer work for the majority. This is not an uncommon thing at all too, by the way. I hardly don't even see a whole lot of young guys out here in society, because most of them are at home neats, unemployed, playing video games, just indulging in the few copes they have left. But when I do see young men out here, they usually don't look like they're doing the best. Okay, just keep it real. They look pretty depressed. I can just see it. I know what's going on. It's like, yeah, these guys know it's over and it's brutal. And so they have nothing. Most young men feel like they've got nothing. And what's stepping into that void are these hostile actors from these foreign governments. So nowadays, a lot of young guys are believing and parroting full-blown Chinese propaganda and Russian propaganda, you see. And this is a very real and serious issue, because these old people, again, these same old people that are neglecting them and allowed this to happen, okay, these people are going to be dead and gone. So it doesn't matter that they know the truth and that they kind of see it for what it is. They're going to be dead and gone. They are not the future. It's these young men that are going to be the future. Even though they've been neglected the whole way to that future, they're still going to be the future. And when you've got an entire generation of young people that are going to be coming into the reins of society one day, and they believe outright Chinese and Russian propaganda, okay, what do you think that's going to do? You see, and I by no means have love for America, but I do recognize this is the actual situation in the world. Is that the current situation in the world right now is actually preferable to what it's gonna be if Russia and China take over, okay? If those two nations take over, like, make no mistake about it, everything you say about America, those nations want to be America. They want to be in America's position. They wish they had the bargaining power that America has. If they had it, oh my, you guys don't have any clue what's coming globally if that happens. They're not, like, a lot of you guys believe their propaganda that, oh, they just want a multipolar world or whatever like this. That's not true. They want supremacy. This is only a talking point that they put out there. And they try to make believe somehow that they are, even though there's a lot of evidence to the contrary, by the way, there's tons of evidence to the contrary, but they want you to believe as a Western person that, first of all, your country is bad. They want you to be demoralized about your own nation. And they want you to believe that if they were in the position that America was in, that they would treat that responsibility, because, you know, with great power comes responsibility. They want you to believe that they would handle that responsibility better than America does. That's not at all true, by the way. Case in point, look at Ukraine. Russia invaded Ukraine completely unjustifiably. Look at what China does. They fly their fighter jets all over Taiwan in a threatening way, and it's well known that they want to invade Taiwan. This is their geopolitical goals, and they're not going to just stop there, guys. They will push as far as they can push it, because, like, they've shown so many times of how Chinese fishing vessels are ramming random boats in their own territorial waters. Oh, because this is now our territorial waters, because it's some ancient claim that goes back to like 2000 BC or some shit. This is how they operate. They don't operate by the rule of law and the global world order. Not that I agree with that global world order, but they sit here and they lie that they are the upholders of this. Like, especially China. Russia kind of went full mask off when they invaded Ukraine. But especially China, okay? But this is what they're doing. They're very disingenuous. And they would be a far worse alternative as a superpower than America is. Now, America has a ton of issues that it needs to address. It really, really does. But you guys don't really understand that if it wasn't America and if it was one of these nations instead, that the world would be far worse off for it. I mean, they put out a lot of propaganda about their society somehow being better than what we have going on here in America. Like, literally, there's tons of evidence and tons of people who live in these countries that tell you contrary to that, you know. Tons of information is out there. There's no excuse to be ill-informed about really anywhere, okay? Like, you can find out, if you really want to know the truth about anywhere in the world and what it's really like there, okay? Like, Russia is more or less the same as America. It's just their people have to deal with 20% interest rates on mortgages, so they can't afford houses either. Nor is there an option for them to get a mortgage for a house realistically, because they never pay it off, and they have less money than Americans do too on top of that. So it's the same capitalist hellhole over there. You know, China too, same capitalist hellhole, but just their citizens have a lot less money to cope with the system, and no, the cost of living is not really so much cheaper there either. I mean, the difference here between what you have as an American and what you would have if you were a Russian or a Chinese citizen, it's just not even close. This is not even talking about alternative systems. You're talking about one system where you are objectively living in a superior situation. Two nations that are launching cyber warfare propaganda campaigns to convince you that your nation is so bad and that their nation having global hegemony would somehow be better for you. But yet, the problems that America has lends itself to young people trusting and believing these narratives that are put out there by these hostile world actors. And so that's the situation that's going on here. You know, these people that run America, they need to tighten up and they need to understand what's happening to their young people if they don't start giving their young people something to be hopeful for, giving their young people a bone in this fight, a bone, like give them a bone at least. They need something. They're going to need something soon, because if they don't get something, you got an entire generation of people that are believing propaganda from hostile world powers. And Russia and China, they probably won't be able to overcome the United States anytime soon. They won't be able to, but if this keeps up, if this situation keeps up, they will, because the current leadership will die off, and the new leadership are going to be these young men and these young people in general who believe that propaganda. And then they're going to make decisions once it's their turn to run the system that are going to basically hand the keys over to Russia and China. And then what? Then we're going to have a far worse world, globally speaking, than anything we could have ever fathomed under the American world order. I'm telling you, mark my words. I really would hate for this to happen. I'm trying to make moves to get to where I want to be before that happens. But this is what's going to go down if our world leaders don't tighten up about this situation, about young people literally sitting here being predated upon by hostile governments that have all the ammunition supplied by you for you not giving them a bone in the system. They've got all the ammunition to convince them. And since they're able to convince them on, these things that line up with their reality, okay, well, they're going to convince them on things that are not true. They're going to convince them that, oh, we're powerful, we got all the technology, our societies are prosperous, more prosperous than America, which is not at all true. But this is the situation that's going to end up happening. Like, these countries are going to win the world if something is not done about this. And young people are very, very lost. And they're just going to hand the keys over to hostile governments that don't have any interest in them whatsoever past their capability to cripple their enemy. Mark my words. This is probably what's going to go down. These stupid people on the right too are also lending their hand into this inadvertently too. But anyways, that's a big reason why I stopped considering myself a conservative, because the conservatives are so stupid that they're literally becoming traitors to their own nation. It's like, come on, why can't you try to vote and clean up your own nation rather than giving it to a hostile nation that's going to be way, way worse than you? You think Russia and China gives a shit about you, by the way? They don't. Like I said, they don't give a shit about you anywhere past your capability to cripple your own nation, which is their enemy. Past there? Oh no, they don't really do the best job running their own society. So imagine what's going to happen if they become global hegemons. They're just going to exploit the whole rest of the world and feed into their failing systems and make the whole world worse off for it. But this is what's going to happen, and it's going to happen because these young people are sitting here getting manipulated by this shit. And this is able to happen because, again, these stupid Western leaders don't give their young people any hope of a chance of prospering in the system laid out before them. And with that being said, that's all I got to say about it. This has been Emperor D on the line. I get it. You're preaching to the choir when you talk about all the problems that America has. America needs to do better. But to say that any other nation is going to be a better alternative, like I said, they're at best, they're just a different brand of the same bullshit. But the reality is that, no, they are far, far worse, actually. You are right to criticize America, but you are wrong to at all think that America is any worse than any of these nations when it's the complete opposite. And so just don't trade one shitty system for an even shittier one, okay, through propaganda. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.